Aaron Putze is the Senior Director of Information and Education at the Iowa Soybean Association. Aaron coordinates communications, marketing, industry relations, producer services, and consumer engagement activities to positively impact Iowa agriculture and the state's 38,000 soybean farmers. He's a 25-year veteran of the agricultural communications profession. He was raised on a crop and livestock farm near West Bend. And prior to joining Iowa Soybean Association in 2010, Aaron served as a public relations director for the Iowa Farm Bureau and executive director of the Coalition to Support Iowa's Farmers. He's an accomplished public speaker and the author of 2 books, Destined for Greatness, The Story of Chuck Long, and The Story of Chuck Long and Resurgence of Iowa Hawkeyes Football, and the second book, You Are Destined for Greatness, Stories of Inspiration and Empowerment. Aaron, we're happy to have you with us today. What should we be excited about?
Well, we got a little bit of rain. That's always good. And the markets are up. The Dow is up. And we're all gathered for fellowship. So I think that you put that all together, and it's a pretty good place to be on this what is it already? The 24th of March. So where is 2021 going? But thank you, Spencer. It's indeed a pleasure to join everybody here this morning. Just want to do a quick check here. Are you seeing my screen? Excellent. So I'm going to move here to duplicate the slideshow, and there we go. It's great to join you. Thank you, Spencer, and thank you, Dean, and really to the staff there at Ag Ventures, Spencer, Kathy, Kelly, and Liz, for the chance to join you here today. I feel right at home. I see some familiar names here as I went through the attendees. I saw the last name of Renner, saw the last name of Nelson there on the roll call. So I know a number of the attendees this morning, and I know them very well. And I also feel right at home because of your motto, your approach to serving farmers. It's all about the farmer. I love that, and I like your core values. They resemble core values here at the Iowa Soybean Association of integrity, commitment, respectfulness. I think we could all use a lot more of that today. And so I commend Ag Ventures Alliance for your focus on those core values and keeping the farmer top of mind in everything that you do. You know, I'm just going to start by saying thank you to the farmers and to those who serve farmers. You really add living to life, whether it's food, whether it's fuel, whether it's fiber. We couldn't really get much done if we didn't have farmers. And I so appreciate the attitude in which we do it. You'll recognize Jeff Foxworthy here on the screen. And I think sometimes we don't maybe take as much credit for what we do and how we do it as we should as Iowans and as Midwesterners. And I love, Jeff often reminds of just how, he says, you may be from the Midwest if the local Dairy Queen closes 4 months out of the year, or you may be from the Midwest and from Iowa if you're in Home Depot and you ask for help and the person who helps you find an item does not work at Home Depot, or you may be from North Central Iowa and having grown up and been raised on a farm near West Bend. I think many of us have probably worn a pair of shorts and a Carhartt jacket on the same day, or run the furnace and the air conditioner on the same day. So there's lots of things going for us here, being from Midwest and being from North Central Iowa or being from Iowa. The last of which may be that road conditions actually improve during the winter because the snow helps fill in all of the potholes. But all kidding aside, I love being from Iowa. I love doing what I do working for farmers. Some of the nicest people on the planet are indeed farmers and those who serve farmers. And I know that firsthand because my roots are in agriculture. There's my grandma and grandpa there on the left, Cyril and Catherine Haig. They farmed near Bancroft there in the northern part of the state. near Ledyard. My uncle there on his prized farmall. And this is home, and it always will be home. This is the farm I was raised there in north central Iowa. And of course, as we all know, that would constitute a hill in Palo Alto County. So that's about as rolling as it gets. But we have the only hill in Palo Alto County. It was on our farm. So we had the pleasure of picking up rocks. Dad rotated alfalfa, oats, corn, soybeans. We had hogs, cattle. So it was a diversified farm. And I'm the youngest of four. And so, while we all did different things on the farm, we were all involved in FFA. And here I am. This is probably 1985 on the shop floor at West Bend High School. And there I am sorting fruit. So that was the major fundraiser for FFA. And I just learned early on the value and the importance of work. And while maybe there were some things that went on at the time there on the farm, whether it was at that time walking beans or baling hay or picking up rocks or painting or cleaning out the livestock pens or bringing the grain in or mowing the yard or picking up the apples that fell out of the tree before we mowed or doing the gardening, picking up branches after a windstorm. I could go on and on and on. There were maybe some activities at the time that I didn't much care for, but what I did ultimately learn was the value and the importance of work and work ethic. And now it's something today that I try to share with my children. But I don't think that we can maybe take enough solace in the fact that we know how to work and it brings great value and meaning to life. And I'm preaching to the choir here, but it's something that has stuck with me. And the other thing, I think, whether it's being in a co-op, managing farms, managing finances and assets, that I think if we enjoy what we do, we never work a day in our lives. And that's certainly true for me, having moved on from college at the University of Northern Iowa and now being 27 years in agricultural communications. I can say I have never worked a day in my life. Some days have been easier than others, maybe, but they've all been really rewarding, really enjoyable. And for the last 11 here as a member of the Iowa Soybean Association team here in Ankeny. Another thing aside from work, there has been something that has always intrigued me, and that's why some people and some companies and some farms succeed and some co-ops succeed and others that don't. And I spend a lot of time thinking about that. What are those drivers? What are those drivers that enable continuous innovation and improvement and success? And it's something I ponder a lot. What's the commonality? What's the connector with those who achieve and deliver and innovate and perhaps those who don't? And I've been so intrigued by it that I took it upon myself here a couple of years ago to really seek out people who are continually innovating, people who are continually aspiring, people who are continuing to look at new and different ways of doing things. And they all came together in the book that Spencer mentioned, You Are Destined for Greatness. And these are just a few of the people that I chatted with along this journey to discovering what separates leaders and achievers and innovators from those who don't. So I visited with Miriam Erickson Brown, President and CEO of Anderson Erickson Dairy, and Randy Edeker of Hy-Vee, Scott Racker with Character Counts, Jim Canute there at Farm Credit. In the upper right, there is a young Wendy Winterstein, now president of Iowa State University, and Dr. Angela Walker Franklin there in the center of the screen, who's president of Des Moines University. And of course, our longtime governor, former ambassador to China, North Central native Governor Branstad. And what I discovered in my conversations with those individuals and 20 others was that there are definitely some common denominators among those who are more than happy to take the wheel and who look for the chance to take the wheel And I'll share 6 of those with you here in our time together. And this is especially pertinent to me in terms of taking the wheel. This is my middle child, Grant. So I have 3 children, Garrett, 17, Grant, 15, and Jalen, 11. Jalen going on 21. But I have a 17, 15, and 11-year-old. This is my 15-year-old, and of course, he just got his driver's permit. And for those of all of us who have been through that, it can be a little bit of an unnerving experience to sit there in the passenger seat for the first time, while for the first time your 15-year-old or 14-year-old gets behind the wheel. And I spent a lot of time in the passenger seat here lately as Grant got his driver's permit. And we talked a lot about taking the wheel and about the responsibility that comes from the rubber meeting the road. And that, with responsibility, comes a lot of duty and a lot of expectation. And I think we can apply that duty and expectation and that responsibility in our roles, either with Ag Ventures aligned with the co-op, or whether it be in helping lead our individual farming enterprises. And there were 6 that really, the things that rise to the top, because this is kind of what the world looks like today, isn't it? There's really no straight connection, straight path between point A, point B, point C, and so forth. And we in agriculture know more than probably anybody that much of what can happen to us can happen outside of our control. It could be the weather, could be the markets, could be the value of the US dollar, could be something happening half a world away. There are a lot of things that come at us. And we don't all have a sign like this. It'd be kind of maybe nice if we did. If you hit this sign, you will hit that bridge. But life doesn't work like that. It doesn't cue up these kinds of signs. And so, more than anything, the first of the 6 takeaways I want to leave with you is the driver that is attitude. Attitude is everything. And while we can't control many of the circumstances that happen to us, and I was reminded of that when I met with this farmer who had lost everything in a tornado, those tornadoes that came through not that long ago and struck so many farms in the derecho that followed last August 10th. What we can control, however, is our attitude to what comes at us. And it really is our perspective, glass half full, glass half empty. And in visiting with 27 leaders for the book, You Are Destined for Greatness, it reminded me over and over, Aaron, attitude is the greatest determinant of one's future. And it could be the co-op that you're leading, the farm that you're running, it could be the basketball team that you're coaching. And so when I visited with Coach Jenny Baranchek of Drake University, she spent a lot of time talking to me about the importance of attitude and how we come into board meetings, how we come into the office each day, how we approach our family each day, how we approach our farming enterprise every day, because she brought a different attitude to Drake University women's basketball. And you can see the record there. You can see when she started 11 and 20. You can see in the 2019-2020 season, they were 22 and 8. I can update this screen again because they just recently made the NIT tournament. And this was after many years of no postseason play at Drake University. And the first thing she did when she took the reins at Drake University is she changed the attitude. She brought a positive winning attitude to the court, and her team has responded. And she said, Aaron, we may not be the very best every day, but it's a choice to bring our very best every day. And so I encourage everybody on this call to really think about the attitude that you bring each day. What does that attitude say about you, your farm, your co-op, your enterprise? As Kirk Tyler shared with me, and I interviewed Kirk Tyler for the book as CEO of Atlantic Bottling, he said, Aaron, we can teach a lot of things, but we can't teach attitude. And so it all starts with a positive attitude. You bring a positive attitude to Atlantic Bottling, we can teach you how to sell Coca-Cola. And I think the same holds true where you live and work, that the people that surround you, who represent you, who work for you, what attitude do they bring? And is that attitude one that's going to take your farm, take your co-op, take your enterprise to the next level? Or is it holding you back? So my first self-check for you today is think about attitude and what it's meaning to your business and your future. The second driver is goal setting. And, I think a lot of people talk about goals, but they get maybe a little carried away with goals. I think goals have to be realistic, and we have to start. I always talk about working backwards from goals. Much like a vehicle has a reverse, my son hasn't quite mastered it all that well as he backed into our garbage can the other day. I think it's important from a reverse standpoint, look at goals and set that goal and work it backwards. I needed to lose 30 pounds, and I'm happy to say I lost it. But I didn't lose it in one fell swoop. I started with a goal of I want to get to 100,000 steps every week. And I broke it down and I was, well, that's 14,300 steps a day. Is that doable? And I found out that yes, it is. Now, 100,000 steps a week sounded like a lot. It sounded like a big goal. But I walked it literally, I walked it backwards from that. And 14,300 steps a day is manageable. It's reasonable. And that got me on my way. And I often, as I tell folks, I say, small starts get big results. Let's not get too carried away with the result. Let's do some small starts. Let's work backwards and see incrementally how we can get to a goal, because a body in motion stays in motion. And sometimes when a goal is so big and could be unrealistic, how do you start moving toward that goal? And a body at rest stays at rest, a body in motion stays in motion. And if you set incremental steps to get to a goal, that motion leads to more motion, that leads to momentum. And before you know it, you've arrived at the goal that you have set forth. So my second self-check here this morning is, what goal or two could you set right now today? If you have a pen or a piece of paper handy, jot two things down. They could be small, and that's okay. But they may lead to something else that's bigger and bigger and bigger. And so set a couple of goals, work them back, walk them back, work at them incrementally, and I think you'll find some great success comes from that. A third driver that I want to leave with you is being in the moment. The importance of being in the moment and taking inventory of what's around you. We live in a world that wants to speed us up. We live in a world that's really noisy. In fact, the noise drowns out a lot of really good things. Sometimes I think the noisiness is purposeful. It's distracting. So I think the more that we can be in the moment, for me, I haven't done a lot of this lately. Unfortunately, I'm looking forward to getting back to it. That's traveling, that's flying. I'm always in the moment when I'm at 10,000, 15, 20, 25,000, 30,000 feet. I find that that's a place for me to truly be in the moment. And I think making the most of every moment is so critical, because when you think about how the world wants to speed us up, all the things that can happen, the mistakes that happen, the things that we forget, the things that we don't hear, when we're not in the moment, are we not listening? And somebody told me the other day, she said, Aaron, you know how many things people miss just by not listening? Just by being more in the moment, by listening better, we can be infinitely more productive and effective. Just by listening more or listening better. And that comes centric back to being in the moment. I was sitting outside my child's fifth grade parent-teacher conference, and I looked at the sign and I said, okay, so much for being in the moment, but where are my kids going to school? Actually, I found it kind of interesting. And that's another benefit of being in the moment. Do we notice some of the greatness that's around us? I mean, life is full of simple pleasures and things that can kind of make us laugh, and laughter is good for the soul as well. Here's a sign to the restrooms at Home Depot. You can do it. We can help. No, thank you. I think I can handle this one. But are we in the moment? Do we notice those things around us that can bring momentum? Speaking of momentum, bring momentum to our life, bring some fun, bring some inspiration. So I just encourage you to find a moment for stillness. Clarity can come in the stillness. When you think about being able to block everything else out and being able to focus. So big things can come in those everyday moments and being still. And Randy Edeker in my book, he shared with me a story about, and I'll let you read it if you have a chance to immerse yourself in the book. But he talked about some appointments that were coming at him that he thought he was too busy for, but yet he made the time for them and to be in those moments and those events, and they had a profound impact on him. And there's the reason today he is CEO, board chairman, and president of a grocery store that is growing immeasurably. So my third self-check for you is to find time at least once a week where you can be still and be in the moment. My fourth driver today is to do just that, drive. There's a reason there's the drive shift on a vehicle and on your equipment. It's because it gets you moving forward. As I've spent a lot of time in the car with my 15-year-old, one thing dawned on me. There's not a lot of space devoted to looking back. Yes, it's important to look back, as often is said. Look back, just don't stare. Perhaps that's why in a vehicle or in our automobiles, there's about 185 square inches devoted to looking behind us. I know because I got out one day after being driven around town by Grant, and I actually measured the square inches of the two rear view mirrors and the rear view mirror inside the vehicle, and they came to about 185 square inches. And then I measured the area of the windshield, or how we look forward, and it was nearly 8 times the surface area of looking behind us. And yet when you think how many people look behind themselves, how many people continually reflect on what's behind them, and I think when they do, they miss so much opportunity of what's out in front of them. Don't look back, you're not going that way. So I often encourage people to avoid the paralysis of indecision and constantly looking back by instead looking at what's coming at them. And it's okay to be wrong. I find a lot of people don't want to look ahead. They don't want to commit to driving and doing things because they actually fear commitment. And I get it. There's a fear of accountability. There can be a fear of failure, a fear of change, a fear of criticism. Believe it or not, some people actually fear being successful. And so they're okay with staying put or even going backwards. And yet, that fear can master you by not wanting to take that next step. Look at where that next investment may be. Look at that next change that you can make happen on your farm. And I speak from firsthand experience. I was scared to death of moving ahead and writing Chuck Long's biography. I'm like, oh my gosh, am I up for this? What if I get the story wrong? What if I get a fact wrong? Believe me, sports fans will let you know if you got the distant and down wrong on a game that happened 25 years ago. They will let you know. So I'm like, do I want to face potential criticism? What if I get the tenor and the context wrong on the all-time passing leader in the University of Iowa football history? And yet I made the commitment to move forward with it, probably even before I was ready. I'd never written a book before. I'd never been published before in this way. So, and yet I did. And I can tell you that all the good things that have happened, all of the new doors that have opened came because I committed to doing that. And, I know Brent may be on the visit here today. Truth be told, I told this to Kirk Leeds, my boss here at Iowa Soybean. I was fearful of flying internationally. I had a fear of being away from my family for 10 days to 2 weeks. I had a fear of going over oceans that were in places maybe a mile deep. I'm not a big fan of deep water, not so much the deep end of a swimming pool, let alone the Pacific Ocean. And yet I committed back in 2016 to going on an international market development trip to Thailand and my world was forever changed for the better. And since I've been to China twice, Pakistan, Bangladesh, it's made me a much better employee here at Iowa Soybean and made me a greater service to soybean farmers. So my fourth self-check this morning is, what can you commit to? Maybe get you a little bit out of your comfort zone, but what can you commit to that will, in essence, though, at the end of the day, make your family, make your farm better? Fifth driver is innovation. I'm preaching to the choir here on innovation. Few industries have innovated more than agriculture. You think of where we've come from in 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, going from almost entirely driven by horses and that kind of horsepower to now things like blockchain and aerial mapping and all of the things around carbon sequestration and all of these really cool things that are happening in agriculture. Innovation is where it's at. And we must continually look at innovating. Casey's has, I interviewed Bob Myers for my book, a fuel place serving donuts. Are you kidding me? And pizza? They're the fifth largest pizza chain now in the United States. Innovation. Hy-Vee. Hy-Vee was the first to have ATMs. Hy-Vee was the first to have a floral department. Hy-Vee was the first to have an in-store bakery. Hy-Vee was the first to have a lot of things. And yeah, there are things that they have failed at, but there are more things that they have innovated to, even aisles online. They were one of the first to embrace online grocery sales. And then a pandemic hit, and they were leap years ahead of the competition. There's a reason why there's now Hy-Vee stores in nearly a dozen states with sales in excess of Delta Airlines with 80,000 plus employees, because Hy-Vee has continually innovated, much like a lot of other Iowa companies that are leading the pack in what they do. There used to be 140 dairies on the east side in Des Moines. There's one now, and that's AE. Maybe because they were okay with innovating to cherry almond flavored yogurt when everybody else was only okay with vanilla and maybe strawberry. So innovation is key. We do it well in agriculture, and we're going to continue to have to do it even better moving forward. And my final driver to share with you today is the importance of respect and humility. I love it as a core value. You have respectfulness as a core value of the Ag Ventures Alliance. I have to continually work at this one because it's really hard in a world that we live in where it's all about me, and sometimes it's about who's the loudest. I learned humility and respect from my folks. And here's Dad, and my mom is blind. My mom lives on the farm to this day. She's 83, lives there on the farm, and everywhere they went arm in arm. And I learned about the importance every day of respect and humility from my parents, because you won't find more humble and respectful people on the planet than them. And it drove home with me when Dad held his farm sale here not that long ago, in which 50 years of equipment was sold in 50 minutes. And what was so moving about that day and emotional for me was, you can see the lineup of equipment, folks. I mean, most of it was homemade. Much of it wasn't all that practical for a lot of the folks who showed up that day. You can see the hay rack, you can see the hog trailer, you can see the manure spreader, you can see the wagons. But what was so cool, two things. As the sale went on, the skies turned from overcast to bright blue. It was almost like a recognition from above on a career well spent. Here's Dad with his back to us. This was the last item that went off the farm that day. The International 886, I think it sold for about 10.4. The only cab tractor Dad ever owned. He was pretty proud of that tractor. Brought a good price that day. Second thing that I was so moved about that day was the number of people who showed up. You can see the line of cars north to West Bend. There was a line of cars like that. You can see to the south, there was a line of cars like that up east, up the gravel road. So many people showed up that day, and I think the reason they did, and I was reminded as Dad sunk into this lazy boy did not go on the farm sale that day. But as Dad reminisced, and I reminisced with him, it's because Dad was just a very humble farmer. Even during the 80s, when he could have maybe grown his farm, he didn't. He gave fuel to the person who ran out of fuel at 2 a.m. on Highway 15 with no questions asked. And I so will forever treasure the memory of Dad for that. Because because in 2017, Dad passed after a long and difficult battle with dementia. And he passed, his funeral, his visitation was held on my birthday. And I think it was his last reminder to me that, you know what, Aaron, it's never really about you. And that lesson of humility and respect for others has stuck with me. So I just encourage you, there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic for ag. We have prices improving. We have transportation getting better, including the dredging of the lower Mississippi. We have sales taking place, markets that are emerging, new uses, each and every day, new uses for everything we grow and produce, tangible progress on conservation, rising demand for protein, new and innovative equipment and applications and data technology to use, and then finally, a growing appreciation and respect and trust among consumers in what we do in agriculture and what we do in farming. And to me, these are some money slides right here with the consumers trusting and appreciating what we do in agriculture. Thank you for the chance to be at the wheel with you here this morning. And with that, I will turn it back over to Spencer. Thank you.
Aaron, that was an amazing amazing presentation, and I'm really happy that we were able to get you to come talk with everyone today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.